brother! How are spells created in Harry Potter? Are undiscovered spells just like out there waiting to be unearthed? Or is it more a matter of invention? Like, do witches and wizards craft meaning and intent into specific words? Or is just knowing the words enough to make any given effect happen? Or do the words even matter at all? Like, most of the spells taught at Hogwarts are derived from Latin, which is, all fine and dandy if you speak English or a language derived from Latin. But, somehow I doubt like schools in Africa or China, for example, are saying Wingardium Leviosa.
It's Leviosa.
Because here's kind of an interesting thing. If the words do matter, then that would suggest that spells are not derived from Latin, but that Latin is derived from magic.
Wicked.
Like, wizards would have been just like trying out different sounds and words to discover spells, and when they did, they would see what the spell did and then just prescribe that meaning to those words.
What?
Which I admit is like a very fun possibility, but not the one that I think is true. But then like if the words don't matter, then is it all just about intent? Like what you want your magic to do? Like do the words just help guide your brain to a practiced intent? Maybe, but then you also have some really odd cases too, like when Ron is trying to turn Scabbers yellow. Like it certainly doesn't sound like the kind of spell we've ever heard before. It's like kind of more of a chant, and yet his intent is clear, but no effect. And then you've got Harry successfully casting spells like Levicorpus and Sectum Sempra without knowing at all what they're gonna do, and yet the magic obeys on words alone. So like, how does that work? The math does not seem to be mathing, you guys, but fret not, I do think I have the explanations and may have gotten to the bottom of how spells are created and or invented in Harry Potter. Okay, spells, easily one of the most fun things you start learning about when you first get into Harry Potter, and part of the world that always seems to just make sense. Like when you're a kid and you're growing up, you know about like Muggle magic shows and have heard of magic wands and stuff, and probably heard magic words like abracadabra or bippity boppity boop. Boo? Boop. Bippity boppity boop.
Bippity boppity boo.
Bippity boppity boo.
Bucket.
Boop. But so the idea that young wizards all get a wand and learn certain words to cast certain spells feels pretty straightforward. And early on, you never even question it. You just say words, do spell. Flipendo! What do you think that one's supposed to do? It's like the video games version of just like what the do everything spell. Yeah, we couldn't think of a new one. It's magic for press A. But there is even an entire scene focused on how important pronunciation is. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. And yet, there are also hints that there's a little bit more to it than just saying the words. And then, once you'd managed to find them, there were the classes themselves. There was a lot more to magic, as Harry quickly found out, than waving your wand and saying a few funny words. Even in Harry's first day in Transfiguration, the class is taking complicated notes on how to turn just a match into a needle, and only Hermione manages it. So clearly, for some kinds of magic, there is more to it than just knowing the right words. Like, you have to understand some level of theory or underlying principle, or perhaps focus a specific emotion, like when you're casting a Patronus. And yet, it is also clear right from the beginning that sometimes, even complicated magic can be done without any intention or magic words or understanding of what's happening or even knowledge that you can do magic. Like when Harry regrows his hair overnight to avoid embarrassment, or apparates to the school roof, or most famously makes the glass on the boa constrictor cage disappear. All are examples of magic helping him out of specific emotionally charged moments, and yet, at this point, he doesn't even know magic exists, and at no point is he saying magic words. And I don't know, but if you ask me, that seems like a pretty big point in the words are not necessary and hold no real power column. Perhaps even more impressive, and making the even stronger case though, is the young Tom Riddle when he's still at the orphanage. I can make things move without touching them. I can make animals do what I want them to without training them. I can make bad things happen to people who annoy me. I can make them hurt if I want to. Like, here's a kid who doesn't know what magic is either, but at least realizes he is making things happen and begins to develop an amount of control over it. Again, without magic words or a wand, just nonverbal intent and willpower. In fact, most adult wizards seem to primarily operate using a majority nonverbal spells, although I suppose you could argue that maybe they are thinking the name of the spell in their head. But either way, all signs seem to point to magic words not being necessary at all, which might make you wonder, then why even bother? Like, what is the point of memorizing a bunch of different spells if the words are pointless?
The incantation alone is not enough.
And that's a great question, and the answer is that there's just so much that magic can do that while your intent and what you want the magic to do seems to be the most important, there's also no denying that for some spells and kinds of magic, you do need to understand some kind of theory or principle to control the magic. And so to that end, assigning words to your intent is a great way to help your brain guide your magic to the desired effect, like building a magical neuro pathway in your mind. Or to just simplify it and not say it in so many words, magic words give wizards' brains a way to practice specific intent. And that is, I believe, how it works. And yet, there are still some outlying situations that do need to be accounted for. For example, what about Ron's spell to turn Scabbers yellow?
Are you sure that's a real spell?
Now, initially, I would agree with Hermione, like no other spells are like little sing-song rhymes or chants like this. And yet, I don't think that matters. Because as we just went over, like Ron knows what he wants the magic to do, doesn't he? And like changing hair color doesn't seem that complicated, so why doesn't this work? Well, I actually have like several reasons for Ron's failure here. First is that this is likely the first time Ron has ever tried casting a spell like ever. Therefore, he simply just has no experience controlling or channeling his magic at all.
Look, stop. You're going to take someone's eye out.
Second is Ron's wand, which is only barely his and actually a hand-me-down from Charlie and is made from ash and unicorn hair, which, fun fact, this particular combination is the worst wand combination of them all at changing masters. Ollivander even specifically cites it when talking about ash wands. The ash wand cleaves to its one true master and ought not to be passed on or gifted from the original owner because it will lose power and skill. This tendency is extreme if the core is of unicorn. So, really not helping Ron's cause. But my favorite reason for Ron's failure in turning Scabbers yellow is that, unbeknownst to him, his intent is misguided, because his intent is to turn a rat yellow. And of course, Scabbers is actually the man, which is pretty gross. A man who, for that matter, is already yellow in terms of cowardice. Like, you ain't calling me yella. I ain't yella. But while we're talking about chants that should count as spells, I guess we should also address Seamus here in the movie, too.
Eye of rabbit, harpstring hum. Turn this water into rum.
Okay, so like, first of all, what does the eye of a rabbit or a heartstring hum have to do with rum? This has got to be the worst spell I've ever heard.
It's not very good, is it?
Second of all, I got to applaud this 11-year-old's effort to like circumvent the drinking age and get drunk at school, but his intent is pretty clear about what he wants the water to do, so why does it explode? Well, unlike Ron, who's just trying to change rat hair color, Seamus is trying to change the chemical makeup of the water, which seems more complicated, even though he does get it to turn to weak tea, which that alone suggests he's on the right track. But I suspect he fails here because he lacks the full understanding of the theory just yet, and so... And y'all, now we need to take a brief pause right there to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, BetterHelp. It's February, which holds all sorts of holidays. My birthday, for one, yesterday. Thank you for asking. 37. Can't believe it. Feeling old. Whatever. But also, more notably, depending on who you ask, Valentine's Day. Or as we like to call it, Eastern Van Pavia Day. But hey, not everyone can celebrate Friendsgiving in February with French fry parties. I mean, you do you, whatever. But we all know about red flags when it comes to looking for a good partner. But here's a better question. What are your green flags? Because I often think this is under-discussed. Like, let's not focus on what we don't want so much as what we do want, whether it's in a partner or just in life. Because avoiding red flags is a lot less actionable than chasing green ones. So like, here's an example for me. Like a red flag for me in life is working late. So we strive to maintain like a very regular 9 to 5 limit here at SuperCarlinBrothers. But sometimes less clear to me was what I wanted to do with the time I was allocating for myself. And oddly, it actually took sessions in therapy to help me realize that I want time just for me, to recharge, to play a video game, read a book, do nothing. Which all sounds really obvious, but sometimes it's shocking just how hard it can be to answer, what do you wish you had more time for? What makes you happy? Or maybe you know what you want to do with that time, but you feel guilty for doing it because it'll make you happy. If it makes you happy, that means you probably could have been doing something else to make someone else happy, but you don't realize that like by making you happy, you're better equipped to make other people happy, and that's the kind of stuff you can talk about in therapy. So discover your relationship or just personal green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/super to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/super. Link is in the description down below. Moving on though, we should also address the biggest argument in favor of the words do matter, which comes during Harry's 6th year when he's reading the Half-Blood Prince's potion book and comes across 2 spells in particular, Levicorpus and Sectum Sempra. When the prince writes each of these spells down, he doesn't say what they're gonna do. And yet, Harry succeeds in casting both of them with their intended effect just by saying or thinking the spell's name. So like, what gives? Sectum Sempra! How is he able to focus his intent if he doesn't know what it's supposed to do? Well, I have 2 possible explanations. The first possibility is the fact that Harry is a Horcrux and that the bit of Voldemort's soul inside of him does know the intended use of these spells, and as such, Harry is able to pull them off even though he personally doesn't know. But I don't love that explanation because it's not like Harry is just great at all other beginner spells too, like Wingardium Leviosa or anything. Like, I mean, maybe you could argue that Harry's soul is so much stronger than Voldemort's that even a little bit of intent is enough to override him, but if Harry actually has no idea what the spell is going to do, then the Horcrux could come into play. But that's grasping at straws, if you ask me, especially when there is a way better explanation, which is that Harry does know what the spells do. See, both of these instances, Sectum Sempra and Levicorpus, happen in Half-Blood Prince and are Snape's inventions.
I'm the Half-Blood Prince.
But even though he doesn't know the name of the spells, Harry actually has seen both of them in action before back in Order of the Phoenix when he was inside of Snape's worst memory in the Pensieve. In fact, the 2 spells are used in reaction to one another. But too late. Snape had directed his wand straight at James. There was a flash of light and a gash appeared on the side of James's face, splattering his robes with blood. That's Sectum Sempra. James roared about. A second flash of light later, Snape was hanging upside down in the air, his robes flailing over his head to reveal skinny, pallid legs and a pair of graying underpants.
That's rough, buddy.
And that's Levicorpus. So not only has Harry seen them before, but he has witnessed them literally from inside the mind of the inventor of both spells. And that is the key part, I think. Like, Harry's brain was inside the brain that invented those spells and witnessed their effects. So even though Harry is unaware he knows the effect, a part of his brain does. Leaving us with just one more question, which is, how did Snape go about inventing spells at all? And I think we've mostly already covered it. Snape was trying to create specific effects with magic and was able to hone his intent so skillfully that he could do them over and over, and eventually just assigned well-fitting names to the spells. Sectum Sempra specifically, though, is a very fitting and tragic name because you can translate the Latin a few different ways, including cut always, ever cutting, or, and this is the fun one, always sever. Always, as in
Always.
yeah, Snape's most famous line ever about his undying love for Lily, from whom he is perpetually severed. Perpetually severed first because of his own interest in the dark arts, and then permanently in Lily's death. Both situations Snape feels personally responsible for. And it gets better because Snape's first name is Severus, which, if you plug back into Sectum Sempra, you can read it in one of two tragic ways. Either it reads always Severus, perhaps how Snape hoped Lily would feel about him. Or you could read it always sever us, describing the true nature of how Snape's actions affect his relationship with Lily, always severing them apart. Like, I can even imagine a world where what he was trying to do with inventing the spells was impress Lily, or maybe just trying to use them against the Marauders, or maybe way darker, to try and like kill James to remove him as a romantic rival. But of course, as always, it doesn't work. Lily hates dark magic and it just drives her away. And that's how spells work in Harry Potter. Guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to leave a like on it if you haven't already, and subscribe so you don't miss any future Harry Potter action from us. If you want to hear more about Snape and how he's totally a vampire, you can check out this video right over here. But otherwise, Ben, until next time, I will see you in another life, brother.